all, for a lot of my regular viewers, you may not know that I'm a watch nerd. I'm actually a big enough watch nerd that I host 2 watch enthusiast meetups per month here in the Salt Lake area. Well, the owner and designer for the Mount West Watch Company, Drew, attended one of our meetups back in November of 2025. We got talking, and he offered me all of the colorways for a summit line to test and review for both YouTube and for our website, primerpeak.com. Well, I've had the watches for the better part of the last month, and I'm ready to share my thoughts. What do I think of the Mount West Summit line? Mount West is a very new watch brand. Based out of Salt Lake County, the brand draws a lot from the environment out here in the western United States. The owner and designer, Drew, is a big outdoorsman and has been snowboarding for most of his life. His love for the mountains is apparent in the design of this watch. Drew's also an inventor and has an extremely unique, patented dual bezel design here on this watch. At time of recording, there are 4 colorways in the Summit line, with the green tree line, the black obsidian, the blue abyss, and the fully loomed white snowfall. I've mostly spent time with the snowfall, but I did have the other colorways at various times during my review process. Before I get into the core of this review, I do want to mention that the watches I'll be showing are all pre-production models. There are quite a few changes coming to the production models, so let's roll through those right now. While there are changes coming, the watches I tested are like 80% the same of what the production watches will be. The core elements of the watch will be staying the same. The watches I tested were also ones that have been handled by quite a few folks in the area, so some of them have dings and dents or some scrapes on them, because that's what happens when you have tester watches out there in the wild. I like to share the transparency here as I value it personally when I look into other reviews for things. Continuing with the theme of transparency, Mount West has not paid me for this video review or my written review, and is not giving me a watch as some sort of compensation for doing either of those. I am doing this for the love of the hobby, and the only compensation I get comes from all of you out there in YouTube land. So I do appreciate you watching the video, commenting, subscribing, and all of those things. Now let's get into the review proper, starting with the unique bezel on the watch. I mentioned it earlier, but the Summit line has an extremely unique bezel design. With this bezel, you actually have 2 rotating bezels. If we rotate the normal counterclockwise way, both bezels will move together. However, if we rotate clockwise, only the outer bezel will rotate. With this, we have 2 bezels to use on the watch. There are a lot of uses for this feature, like using it for timing 2 things at the same time, for timing one thing and using the other bezel as a GMT function or a 12-hour function, or as a register time, which is where you track 2 different things, like an elapsement of time and, marking 2 points there on the watch. There's a lot that can be done with this, but for me, I've mostly used it for tracking 2 things at the same time. I've personally used it for baking, doing automotive work, and for timing intervals at the gym. Aside from the practicality, the bezel does make for a great fidget toy.
Tee-hee-hee-hee.
The coin edge on the bezel is very grippy, and with the case design here, there's plenty of purchase at the 12 and 6 o'clock positions for rotating the bezels. Moving to the dial, we've got some really impressive design work. All of the summits come with nicely applied indices, a 6 o'clock date window, and a central 24-hour register. The summit really isn't that big, but Mount West managed to get the most out of the dial here. I found that the hands are quite legible, and I really do like how the hands interact with the indices. With the 4 colorways, there's basically something for everyone here, but the Snowfall has been my favorite. The loom is fantastic across the board on all of the models, but the fully loomed Snowfall is just extremely impressive for how good the loom is. On my tester watch here, the loom is nice and bright, but it also lasts for nearly 7 hours of good legible brightness. I actually had to stop wearing this thing at night about a week into my testing because my arm was glowing so brightly that it was actually causing my girlfriend to wake up in the middle of the night. Moving to the case, the watch is a very wearable, very cool design. I've got a 7.5-inch wrist, and this short lug-to-lug, fairly thin watch wears like a dream. It's also got 20mm lugs, so it's not hard to try it out on different materials, like leather or maybe an FKM Tropic strap, but truthfully, the bracelet that it comes on is pretty good too. The case itself has some very cool angular bits, some smooth bits, and a very high level of finishing. I put it on par with a lot of the luxury watches from about 20 years back, and this is pretty similar finishing to both my 1999 Omega Seamaster 300 and my 2011 Planet Ocean. The crown is grippy and easy to rotate, and the case back features the Northern Star in Loom. I think that's really cool. It's like a very unique design thing, because it's cool, but it also, I'd rather have that over an exhibition case back. I really do dig the case design and the overall design of like the watch itself, like the core parts of the watch there, and it scratches my itch quite well. All of the Summits will ship on the Bracelet. The Bracelet is very comfortable and is sized via screws, which I greatly prefer over pins and collars. It uses a double button clasp with an external micro adjustment. I really like the clasp, I found it to be very easy to use, and that external micro adjustment has been fantastic for resizing on the fly. You don't have to take the watch off your arm to resize the watch on the fly, which is a big thing for me. I have seen a lot of broken watches over the years, and 9 times out of 10, people are breaking watches when they're taking them off or putting them on, not while it's actually on your arm, so being able to resize it while it's still on the wrist is a big thing for me. Now with getting into the cold season here in Utah, I do find that my wrist size fluctuates throughout the day, where it shrinks when I go outside and swells up a little bit when I go inside, so I really do appreciate that micro adjust. With weightlifting, it's been very handy too because my arms are going to be swelling up a fair bit, both arms, hands, and wrists a little bit, and I do like having the ability to make the watch wear a little bit bigger when I need it to. Now for the production models, the Bracelet does get some more articulation, but I found that this one on the pre-production one was totally fine. I think it looks stylish and it wears really well too. Getting into the movement here on the watch is powered by the Sellita SW200-1 movement. This is a pretty common movement to see in a lot of the higher end micro brands these days, and I've really not got a whole lot to say about it. The Sellita SW200 is a clone of the ETA2824, which is a tried and true movement, which I've used in other watches in the past, and I've had no issues with this specific Sellita SW200 during my testing. These are regulated to within plus or minus 12 seconds a day, which is pretty much the standard for the SW200s, but for this snowfall that I had here, it ran about 2 seconds fast a day, which is certainly good enough for me and well within the certifications and specifications for the Sellita SW200 movement. Now as part of my testing, I wore this watch in my normal everyday life. I wasn't dropping it off of cliffs or slamming it into things, I was wearing it how I would wear my normal watch. It was on me for an oil change in my Subaru Forester, for a CVT fluid swap in a friend's Civic, and quite a few trips to the gym and 2 shooting trips. I really enjoyed how it wore, and even as someone who doesn't really like bracelets, I found it to be very comfortable. The practicality of the bezels was certainly handy for me too, and the watch had enough intrigue as part of the design that every time I went to go check the time, I was just kind of happy to look at it. This is one of those watches that you don't really get bored by looking at. All in all, I really like the Summit line from Mount West. These are not inexpensive watches, but I do think that the value is there, especially for me. This is one of those things where it's so unique between the general design of the watch, the bezel, and just the fact that it draws so much from the place I live. This is one of those watches that feels like it was almost catered for what I want out of a watch. It's got a whole lot going on, and I think that's really cool. So what do you think of the Summit line from Mount West watches? Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching till the end, and massive thanks to my financial supporters here on the channel. If you'd like to join as a patron of the channel or a channel member, you can do so via the links down in the description below. I'll see you in the next video.